portion of the series today will be recorded. We will have breakout sessions later, which will not be recorded. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off. I'm going to go to the next slide here. So we're just going to go around the Zoom room and introduce our presenters today. My name is Stephanie Rock. I'm a Policy Associate of Student Services and K-12 Alignment at SB-CTC. It's nice to see everybody this morning. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kristen.
Hi folks, I'm Kristen Jowie. I'm the Program Administrator of Student Services in K-12 Alignment, and I will popcorn to Tim.
Good morning, everybody. Tim McClain, Dual Credit Program Supervisor at OSPI.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Reed. I'm here at the State Board in the CTC Link Customer Support Student Financials Associate Director. Spencer?
And good morning. Hopefully my headset's working. Spencer Egbert. I'm a senior analyst under Brandon for the Student Financials team here at the State Board.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to all of our presenters for being here with us this morning. We've got a great presentation, and I also wanted to thank everyone for taking the time today for attending. I know everyone's very busy with spring quarter, spring term underway. All right, so here's our agenda. I wanted to take a look at this before we get really going here. I'm going to turn it over to Tim in just a minute for some dual credit updates. And I did want to note that we are going to have some time for Q&A for Tim and myself after Tim provides some information. And then we'll turn it on over to Brandon and Spencer and Student Financials. And last month we had a CTC Link Running Start survey. So we wanted to go over some of those results with you all and share out and have a conversation and potentially what we might want to look at for some running start improvements in CTC Link. And so we'll have some time today to talk about that this morning. And then Brandon's going to share about the Student Financial Responsibility Agreement, the SFRA. I know that we have mentioned it a couple times during our series, and so we wanted to revisit that and have a conversation because there have been some changes that do impact directly our Running Start population. And then we're going to have a chance for breakout sessions later. And what better topic than best practices for summer, since it is already end of April. So we've got our summer term coming up here quickly. So thought it would be really fun to just have a share out of what you all are putting together as best practices and, what you have learned from past summers. And so just having that opportunity to come together and have a conversation about that today. We will have a little time to share out some takeaways from the breakout session. And then we are going to, SBCTC Kristen has actually put together a survey about just to gather any information on innovative practices that you all have, things that you are doing, just trying to find another way to share out all the great work that everyone is doing system-wide in our Running Start programs outside of just hit or miss in a breakout session, right? So this would be an opportunity to gather some more information and then see if anyone would be interested in actually presenting at one of our series. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later today and wrap up. So that's a good look at our agenda. And I'm going to go ahead and now turn it on over to Tim. Thank you, Tim.
Absolutely. As always, thank you for having me. A lot is going on. It is, as you all know, a really busy time of year with student registration for fall, student registration for summer. And so we have just had a flurry of questions about the RSEVF, about Running Start in general. So I'm going to try to tackle some of those for the good of the order. I have done a few more comprehensive responses on the listserv, if you're attuned to that. So forgive me if some of this is duplication, but we're going to dive right in. There's been a lot of questions around the free and reduced priced lunch question relevant to the RSEVF. So I've said this before, and I just sort of want to reiterate that we had some debate about how to put this onto the RSEVF and whether we should provide a field for counselors to acknowledge that they don't have access to the information. We lean towards not doing that so as not to provide a loophole or an easy out for counselors who might have information that you need. And I'm not going to say in hindsight whether that was a good or bad decision, but it has brought up recurring questions around why the box isn't getting checked. So I wanted to dive into that and just remark that if the FRPL box is not checked by the counselor, there is a good chance that that counselor doesn't have access to that information. We've had a lot of conversation at OSPI around how to get around that issue. And the reality is, and this has been confirmed by multiple parties, we cannot force child nutrition services offices to give that information to counselors. So if they're reluctant to do that, we don't have an option to force their hand. This leaves us in a bit of a quandary, but the reality is we're just going to have to work on either a case by case or a school by school basis to figure out how to address that issue. If those boxes aren't getting checked, you're welcome to tell me. You're also welcome to go to the school leadership beyond the counselor, talk to the principal about, or the district about how to get that information. It is required. So I want to be clear about that. And that's why I put the RCW there. It is required that if a school district knows of a Running Start student's FRPL eligibility, they have to tell the college, and that might have to come from Child Nutrition Services. So we have done everything I think that we can to kind of elevate this RCW and ensure that folks know this is an expectation. But what we really need you to discern is like whether we have a systematic, like district-wide issue or an individual counselor issue. And we can work together. You can reach out to me, but I also again encourage you to take some leadership in reaching out to the school or the district and trying to understand what's going on there. It's not an easy solution. I'm happy to answer questions about it when we break for some Q&A. But I arm you essentially with that RCW should you run into these issues so that you can provide it via email to a principal, to a school district, to a child nutrition services office and say, hey, we're having a hard time getting this information. We do need it. It is required that we receive it in some form or fashion. How do we create a process by which that can be accomplished? So that was a long first bullet. I'm sorry, but I want to be really clear about kind of where we are in this. The reality is that the federal restrictions and privacy regulations around free and reduced price lunch information can be interpreted differently depending on who you ask. But it is federal privacy regulation that they're often citing in not making this information more broadly available. There's also been the question of the recent political environment and students' reluctance to provide that information. Now, I know we put a student checkbox there to provide consent, but by the same token, I have heard through the field, through counselors, that students are becoming increasingly reluctant to provide that kind of information. And finally, I just want to say, when it comes to waivers, that really is your business in terms of how you issue waivers. And you are welcome to be more generous than statute requires you to be. If you know that a student is FRPL eligible or low income, and you have an alternative means of getting that information, we have no qualms about you providing more waivers than is indicated on an RSEVF. If a student comes in, that box isn't checked, but you know this student is a returning student who you know has need, you want to apply a waiver, by all means. That's your purview. So I just want to be clear, like our concern is that students who are eligible for waivers are getting them. Beyond that, if you want to be more generous in the way that you distribute waivers, by all means. The second thing I just wanted to make you aware of with the RSEVF is we are in talks right now to have it translated into the top 10 languages in the state. We have some funding to spend down right now before the end of the fiscal year when it all goes away. So we are in talks right now and working on deciding on a vendor who will translate the RSEVF. I admittedly don't know what that will look like. I don't know how that changes the formatting. There's a lot of unknowns from my perspective about like how that looks when it is finally translated because of the fonts and everything else. But know that we are trying to get that done. It was one of the asks that came out through the survey. So work in progress. Hopefully we'll have some results before the end of the fiscal year with the money that we have available to do that. Summer running start, a couple of hot topics that keep coming up. There seems to be an increasing amount of confusion around continuing and fifth year seniors and the checkbox on the summer RSEVF. So I just want to be clear. And again, this is something I think I've said before, and I think I've put out over the listserv. The summer term from our perspective in K-12 is a continuation of the current term. So if you have a traditional or first time senior right now, sitting in seats in the high school, persisting into summer, whether they're pending graduation or whether they haven't met graduation requirements, whatever the case, if they are a first time senior now, they're classified as a continuing senior. They are a first time senior into the summer. When we're talking about fifth year seniors for summer purposes, we're talking about students who are currently fifth year seniors, who have had those restrictions, if you will, in place around their course selection and around their credit maximum. In this current year, they're still fifth year seniors going into the summer. So to be clear and state it one more time, a current senior now does not become a fifth year senior until the fall. So I wanted to get that clear. After exit proviso, I continue to get questions on. I can't say it definitively, but I don't see it happening. Under the having reviewed both chambers' budgets, I don't see it included in either one. And if anything's happening before now and the end of session, I think it's less, not more. I don't see the after exit proviso being added back in at the 24th hour. So take that information and do what you will with it. I don't see it happening. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. I think it's highly unlikely. There's also been questions about seniors pending graduation. I want to reiterate that that is permitted. We've put that into the FAQs. We've put that into multiple, I think, running start listserv posts. We've talked about it before. Seniors who are on track to graduate and will fulfill their graduation requirements in June still have the opportunity to pend their graduation date to August in order to participate, provided they have FTE. This is an after exit. They still need to have FTE and they still can only take a max of 10 credits. But the questions that continue to bubble up are about the graduation date. I've gotten questions about transcripts. I've gotten questions about whether they can take courses for grade improvement. So I want to kind of tackle those. Number one, their graduation date will be August. They are still class of 2025 graduates, but their graduation date is going to be reflected as August, not June. That has brought up the question of diplomas, and I want to be clear that a diploma is not the official record of a student's achievement. That is the high school transcript. So people have asked, well, how are they to order diplomas for these students? How are they to allow them to walk if they're not graduating until August? That's largely ceremonial. The diploma is likely to be earned no matter what. These are students who have met their graduation requirements, so whether or not they took running start would have no bearing on whether they're graduating, and whether there's a June date on a diploma versus an August date, it's really a formality. So I just kind of want to quell some of the concerns around diplomas. They're going to get their diplomas. Most students don't get their diplomas until after the graduation ceremony. Oftentimes there's a placeholder in the folder that they get. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Transcripts are a reality. They can't get official transcripts until they are in fact graduated. We've covered that in a lot of places. I think we've even put it in the FAQs. And I included a quote from Julie Garver, because she fielded a similar question, and she made very clear, like, admissions decisions are generally made before a student graduates from high school in the first place. So the unavailability of an official high school transcript is generally not going to have a major bearing on a student's admission. She says that very clearly. It would not impact admissions, even if the transcript is delayed, especially if we can continue to encourage folks to like provide a letter explaining the circumstances for the student. At least according to Julie, and I would ask Stephanie if she concurs, the actual official college transcript isn't required until matriculation in the fall term. So I would just, as you're talking to students, kind of use that quote to your advantage. Say, listen, it's not going to impact your admission. It's just a reality we have to contend with. And then grade improvements. I'm hearing about students wanting to take a running start to boost their GPA in the bitter end. I would just say, as Julie did, that's not a wise practice, because the decisions have been made. A student doing that at this juncture isn't likely to improve their standing from an admissions standpoint, and that grade's not going to be reflected until August, no matter what. So I just wanted to kind of tackle some of those questions that continue to pop up. I see a question in the chat. I'm going to hold that because I can't read and talk at the same time, and we'll get to the Q&A. A quick legislative update. It's quick because not a whole lot happened. As many of you might have been tracking the session, the only dual credit bill that has made it to the finish line is House Bill 1273, which is in reference to the CTE dual credit pilot occurring up in ESD 189. Many of you are affiliated with that. That appears to be going. The big question now is the funding component. If it sticks in the budget, we will see that pilot continue in much its current form. It's not an expansion. It's not bringing it to scale. It will just continue the work that's being done. And I've mentioned the budget on a couple fronts. It's looking pretty scarce. I'll just say it that way. A lot of provisos have been stripped, especially in the place of K-12. So we don't know until the ink is dry. But that's something I'm sure you're all tuned into, because I know it's not just impacting K-12. It's certainly going to impact higher education. But we are in a period of scarcity. Austerity measures are coming in very clearly. So, I beg your understanding, compassion for those of us juggling that at the state level. It's a tough position to be in right now. So I'll tackle the other hot topics and kind of open it up. I'm getting a lot of questions recently, and I can't pinpoint why, but there's been a lot of questions about out-of-state participation or out-of-country participation in Running Start. That's a pretty clear no. A lot of these questions have been floated around military families, and I would agree it's unfortunate. I'm surprised we haven't done anything to accommodate those military families who are active duty and based here in Washington State. But being very clear, the FAQ identifies that there are RCW that guide this decision, and WACs that guide this decision. If a student is not physically present in the state for at least 50% of the time and 20 consecutive days of the term, they can't participate and be funded for Running Start. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention because the question continues to come up, especially around military families. And then finally, credit conversion has been a hot topic. And I'm bringing it up here, though I think it's less related to Running Start. I think Running Start generally upholds the credit conversion of 3 or 5 to 1 college credits equaling 1 high school credit. I don't hear a lot of quibbling about that from the Running Start perspective, but it has been a hot topic around college and the high school and CTE dual credit. So I just kind of wanted to bring those RCW and WAC to your attention, that this statute that requires 1 high school credit for 3/4 or 5 semester, or I think I reversed that, hours of college level work is in statute, and it's in and it applies equally to college and high school and CTE dual credit. So we are looking to push out some guidance around that because it is coming up very frequently. I think because this is the first year since COVID that we haven't had a graduation credit waiver permitted. And so I think a lot of K-12 schools are looking to kind of recover and go, oh wait, what? How can we figure out how to get the student the credits? Or we thought we had the student there and it appears they're short. How do we do this, and why are we seeing these discrepancies? So that's something that's been a hot topic lately as well. And there's a lot of nuance to that I'm happy to address in the Q&A if we get there. But those are my updates. And I see the questions in the chat, though I haven't read them all verbatim.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to pop over to the Q&A slide, and I'm certainly happy to jump in and help answer any questions. And then I know that it looks like Kristen has been kind of keeping track of the questions for us here that have already been put into the chat.
Okay. Private school students, are they able to pen their high school graduation even if they're actually completing their high school through the private school? I don't see why not. You know, the way that a private school operates is not in our purview. And if they are registered as a public school student for that purpose, then our public school rules apply. Don't necessarily agree with that approach, but I would say honestly that we don't have any jurisdiction over private schools to say that if they have to do something different because the student is doing something on our side of the house. And I don't see anybody sweeping in to correct that. If it were to happen, it's probably a very small portion of our student population. And so I would say if they are enrolled in Running Start, you know, they are subject to the public school rules, and any private school rules are out of our purview.
There's an additional question on that one, Tim. They asked, I would also like to add the students who are getting their Washington State issued high school diploma through the college upon completion of an AA as well.
Yeah, again, all of this goes back to the current rule in WAC that says if a student begins a school year short of the credits to graduation, they may participate through the duration of the school year, even if they meet their graduation requirements midpoint. And so again, I said summer is a continuation of this school year. So that reasoning carries all the way through the summer. So if a student started the school year short of credits to graduation, which is obviously the case if they're pursuing graduation or a diploma through the college, then they get the duration of the school year. So it's more straightforward than we even think it is. It really is just a continuation of the reasoning for that rule. So the answer is yes. If a student's pursuing the AA through the college, they can persist into the summer.
Thank you, Tim. Next question is, if a high school graduating senior is earning their AA in spring 2025, but wants to attend summer 2025 and have available FTE, can they participate in summer 2025?
Same. Yep. I mean, same reasoning. If they're earning their AA, it's equivalent to graduating, right? So again, if they hadn't earned their AA when they started the school year, they get the duration. So same reasoning applies.
Thank you. Um, and if a high school counselor is having a hard time calculating FTE for summer 2025, where do we direct them? What resources are there for high school counselors?
Yeah, that would be a registrar question. I actually saw an email, so I'm curious as to who asked this. This was from Elizabeth. This has been coming up often too. It came up last year. If the high school is not completing the college portion of the FTE table, um, we need to have a conversation with that counselor and understand why. Um, the reality is, as was in the email that I received, the reality is they have the count at the school level, the K-12 level. It lives probably with a registrar, but they should have in the P223 reports the full FTE utilization of that student, both at the high school and the college level, and that's the number we're looking for. If they're having a difficult time doing that, I would point them in the direction of their registrar or somebody in their business office, perhaps. And we can help with that, but I would really encourage you to start the conversation with them and identify if this is a single counselor issue or a more systemic issue within the district or the school. What I understood, at least in the correspondence I received earlier, I think it was only today, maybe yesterday, was that it seemed limited to one high school counselor who simply didn't want to do the work or track down the information. If that's the case, you know, I think it's appropriate for if you've made outreach to them and they say for whatever reason they can't or won't do it, that you reach out to the principal and take the next step and say, you know, we're having a hard time. Most schools are able to give us this information. Can you, you know, help us understand what needs to be done? Because what was referenced in that email was this caveat that we put in the RSEVF that if there's a field that's left incomplete, that you're encouraged to try to correct it. Well, there's a difference between a correction and knowingly omitting something. So I think that's, you know, we said if there's a mistake that's made or something that is not populated, you are empowered to correct that. But if it is clearly an intentional omission, in other words, they're just not filling it out because they don't want to, it's a very different conversation. And frankly, the FTE component is more important than it's a funding, it's a trigger for funding. So it's not like the student forgot to put their ID number. That's a different conversation than we don't have the appropriate FTE and this student's going to be stuck paying a bill because somebody chose not to fill that out. So I would certainly elevate it if it is a pervasive or widespread issue, or connected to a particular counselor who's not doing what's expected. And after you've done your legwork, then feel free to let me know, and I can do some outreach as well. But I want to make sure that, you know, we're trying to maintain that relationship between the college and the high school or the district before I come in, because that's what tends to ruffle feathers.
Thank you, Tim. Next question is, can we get some clarification on the summer EV form college FTE section of the table? If it is left completely blank by a counselor, does it become our responsibility to fill it out? Or is the counselor's responsibility to refer to the monthly billings to fill it out?
Yeah, I think I just tackled that.
Right.
ultimately it's their responsibility. If you wish to work in partnership, that's between you and the high school to complete that. Um, but what we don't want is to have students who are inadvertently, because of lack of communication, one side is putting in this number, you're putting in this number, and we find out that those were incongruent. We don't want students having to pay the price for that. And under most circumstances, I don't think we would. I think one or the other systems would own that error. But it is ultimately the high school's responsibility.
Thank you. Can students who penned their high school graduation for August still participate in the graduation ceremony at their high school in June?
I'm sorry, I was distracted by another comment. Can students? Yes, yes, they should be. And if they're not, I'd like to know that. They absolutely should be. If they are pending their graduation, as I mentioned earlier, they've met their high school graduation requirements. They're walking at graduation to acknowledge that they completed their graduation requirements at the high school level. There should be no reason, except ill-informed ones, that districts or schools are prohibiting students from walking for something that they genuinely earned just for taking this opportunity. It is an opportunity. And frankly, it's not, there's a workload element to this, but it is not harming the school for students to be doing this, in the sense that it's not taking their funding away. This is additional funding on top of their 1.0. So I would like to know if that is happening. That would be a very clear barrier to access, or a disincentive for participating, that we would not like to see happening.
This question is related to the the FRPL. So I would like to add, you said during our last meeting that we weren't going to push it for them to, I think it's the RS but now are you saying, according to the RCW, that we should push it, the filling in the FRPL?
I'm saying, according to RCW, they are required to supply you with that information. How much you intend to push is really up to you. If you have internal mechanisms to identify a low-income student, you have your own forms or something else that the student could do to demonstrate need, by all means use that if you want to. I'm just saying that this argument that counselors don't have it, so we're not going to give it to you, is short-sighted. That may be true. The counselors may not have the information for various reasons, but that does not mean that the district doesn't have a responsibility to tell you. What I think I meant to say in saying, well, you don't have to push it, is you don't need them to tell you a student is low income for you to apply a waiver. You can apply a waiver to whomever you want, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Stephanie might have a different opinion on that. But we don't need that box checked for you to apply a waiver. That's your money. That's your revenue. So if you choose to be more generous with them, that's fine. Where I would suggest pushing is if you have a systemic issue in a particular place where you're not getting access to that information that you are entitled to. I hope that makes sense.
For students who get a late start on summer enrollment, are we asking school districts to remain open, have staff available to sign the summer EVF for a certain period after they would normally close?
No, school districts do not generally close up shop. Schools will. And no, I mean, there are collective bargaining agreements in place that say counselors and teachers are off when they're off. We can't force their hand. Legislature didn't give us any direction, didn't give us any funding for this. So being fair to those counselors and teachers and school buildings. No, we can't force them to stay open. What we have encouraged them to do is transition their operations, if you will, to the district level. And we did draft the RSEVF in such a way that a district staffer or personnel can sign that in the absence of somebody at the school. So that opportunity is there. The other thing we've done to try to incentivize this work is we've pushed out funding through my grant, the Consolidated Equity and Sustainability Grant. We have permitted funding to be used from that to support summer operations at the building or district level. So there are districts that have taken us up on that and are using the funding to support their summer operations. But as far as actually forcing anyone's hand to remain open or put in hours beyond what they're contractually obligated to do, no, we're not doing that. What I would recommend, if you're not yet clear on who your point of contact is during the summer, I'd start having those conversations and I'd get in touch with the district to say, under these circumstances, what's our process? Who's our go-to?
Thank you. Are colleges coding RS students in summer as SRSR or SRSL in CTC link? Or are they coding them as SRSR in summer regardless of their income status?
I don't know.
I was going to say, I'll jump in here. Tim's been answering all of the questions. Thank you so much, Tim. So I think it's just dependent on your own process at your college. Because I know we're having a lot of conversations, right, about waiving excuse me, as Tim has mentioned, waiving for students. I would probably advise to use the same process you do throughout this school year. As identifying students SRSR or SRSL. But I'm certainly interested if colleges wanted to jump in the chat and offer or unmute and offer any suggestions. And that's also part of what we're doing today, right? We're having a breakout session to talk about summer best practices. So that might be a really good one to talk about today in a little bit. But yeah, I think it's really at your own discretion. But I would probably advise to use the same practice you do throughout the year, if that helps.
Thank you, Stephanie. Last question. Will pending high school graduation for August negatively impact transferring to a university in the fall or getting qualified for financial aid in the fall?
As we covered, it shouldn't. When you say transferring, I presume, given the audience, you're talking about students who earn their AA and then wish to go to the 4 years. No, as I mean, I quoted Julie because those are her institutions. I mean, I really can't comment on the college process, but everything that I've heard in the conversations that we have had, Stephanie, Julie, Jamie, myself, like it does not sound that way. It doesn't sound like there would be major repercussions. The only circumstance that I could think of, and again, I'm speculating here, is if a student absolutely tanked. Like, let's suppose they went into summer for 10 credits, failed them both. Still, I think based on Julie's response, a student has likely already been admitted at that point. Could that impact their financial aid? I suppose it could if it put them on satisfactory academic progress. Now, that in my experience, because I did come out of the college system, in my experience, you would start with a warning. It would put you on SAP earlier, and you would be put on SAP warning more likely than not before any funding would be rescinded. But it could have impacts, but fairly unlikely impacts to really shift the decision making that has occurred before August.
Thank you, Tim. One more question, actually. Students who pen their high school graduation to enroll in summer classes won't have their high school graduation posted. That's a question. I am also concerned that students will not meet admission standards of high school completion at the time of enrollment at the university.
Again, the high school transcript is the formal record, and the high school transcript, again, if these students were pending graduation, they've already met their high school requirements. So they have an open, if you will, unofficial transcript, but that transcript should still identify all their core work, should identify all their caters, should identify everything necessary to make an admissions decision. Before the point that they're participating in the summer. All of those things should already be reflected in the high school transcript, even if it is unofficial. You're right that they would not be classified as a high school graduate, but they're not classified as a high school graduate in March when they're applying or being admitted into colleges. So the difference between a student who's applying for colleges in the springtime and getting their admissions decisions and somebody who's doing the same thing in the summer shouldn't really impact the decision making. But again, I would defer to my college colleagues because I'm going off my own experience at colleges, but I'm not the voice of the college system.
Tim, you might have just answered this question, but I'll ask it anyways, just to make sure we cover
Yeah.
it. Isn't a student pending graduation doing so because they have not met
No.
graduation requirements?
No.
And so they are,
I'll jump in.
yeah, great.
No, no, we're talking when we say pending graduation, we are talking about a student who has met graduation requirements, makes a conscious choice to take advantage of the opportunity to acquire additional credits, making them an August graduate. These are students who are eligible to graduate in June if they wished, and by pending graduation, they are bumping that back to August. Where we have students who have not met graduation requirements, they may be doing that to get there by August, but they are not pending their graduation. They are simply just persisting to the end of the current school year. So in both cases, these are continuing Running Start students. They are continuing first year seniors, but there's two distinctions. There is one who still needs to get to the end point, and there are some that hit the end point and continue beyond it.
And I was just going to jump in real quick too. And one of the reasons that a student might pend their high school graduation is to finish up a couple classes, right, to get an associate's degree over the summer or a certificate. So that would be a reason as to why they would pend their high school graduation.
So again, Jane, we covered this at the very top. For both these groups of students, the box to be checked is continuing Running Start student. They are both current seniors who are continuing through the summer, through the end of the term. There's really no distinction in how you identify them. For the purposes of the RSEVF, it doesn't matter. Neither one is a fifth year senior.
Right, I understand that, if I could interject just instead of doing the chat, but on the grade level, it says 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade seemed like the concept initially was 12th graders that weren't graduating and met high school graduation would be eligible. This is almost flipping it back to the funding from last summer where anyone can take funding all summer. There doesn't seem to be it seems like there's a contradiction between if they're seniors and they can just be seniors up till August. I don't know how, I guess if the box is marked, we just process it and they're good to go, but how do we know who's pending graduation, who hasn't met graduation? It seems once you graduate high school, you're not eligible for Running Start anymore. So if you graduate in June, obviously you wouldn't come in the summer.
Right. So again,
saying 12th grade, not graduating, I guess we're just not, that's the term that we don't care if it's pending or not.
We don't.
Needed or pending, either way is how we interpret that. Okay.
Nope. They're making a conscious choice not to graduate themselves in June. So it doesn't matter. They still have, again, by the rule, they still have another 2 months if they want it. Just like a student who fulfills their graduation requirements in December, they could graduate. They choose not to,
Right,
and they
right. But
persist.
if they actually do graduate in June, they are
Yep.
not eligible in the summer. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Correct. If their record is closed, we cannot retroactively. Number one, if their record is closed and they are graduated, they are no longer funded. The school no longer gets money to pay the running start bill. Number two, the transcript is closed. We can't retroactively add credits. I hope. Yeah, good. I see the thumbs up. No, if the summer quarter runs until August 28th, I don't, this has come up a few times. I don't believe that it presents a problem if grades don't release. We do still have the option. We can't retroactively reopen a transcript. We can retroactively close it. So that's my understanding from Lisa Ireland in our transcript shop. Like, if the grades don't come in, we can still apply them and graduate them in August, even if we don't have grades in September. Define after exit funding. A lot of you know this. I'll go through it real quickly. After exit funding was a proviso-based program that permitted graduating students who were within 15 credits of an associate degree to continue running start for up to 15 credits rather than the 10 that we're working with now, to continue running start to complete the associate degree. That happened before the rules were changed to allow summer running start. So it was kind of, we sort of had these two dual paths going on last year and even the prior year, by which we had some students who were considered after exit students because they were within that window. They got more credits and it was funded differently, as opposed to the situation that we're in now where that is gone. We have simply changed the rules to permit students to do nearly the same thing. I mean, they're still doing the same thing for a lesser amount of credits, and after exit also allowed students to go over the 1.4. Again, when after exit was established, the limit was 1.2, so that was more impactful because students would reach the 1.2 AAFTE limitation easier than they could hit the 1.4. So it allowed two things. It allowed students to go over their maximum FTE because it was supplemental funding, and it allowed students to take more credit. Hope that helps.
Before we jump to the next question, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Stephanie, do we want to keep going with questions, or maybe Tim can respond to them in the chat?
Let's finish out if that's okay with you, Tim, just the last questions that were dropped in the chat, and then let's move on because we do need to move on with her. But these are important questions that I think we should probably address verbally, if that's cool with you, Tim.
Yeah, totally. Okay. If the box is checked new student, does the table need to be filled out? Probably not, but there should be another box checked. So if it's a new student, brand new to running start, they're going to check that box at the top. Then when you circle down to the table, there's going to be another box that says, this is a 10th grader, i.e. a new student. This is an 11th grader who has never participated in running start. Again, a new student. This is a 12th grader who's never participated in running start. Again, a new student. So yes, under more circumstances, if new student is checked, there is another box below that that should be checked just to confirm that, because it's usually that scenario in which the new student box would be checked. But we still want that second box checked. Just checks and balances, make sure that we're accurate, because once those boxes are checked, then it says, if this box is checked, you get your 10 credits, don't fill out the table. So that'd be my response to that. Clarifying, was after exit funding meant for seniors who graduated in June but still had 15 or fewer credits to complete? Yes, that's exactly what it was intended for. If they choose not to graduate in June, they cannot take classes. Correct. If a student graduates, if they say, I want to be done, I want a transcript, I want my diploma, I want all the things, and they fill out their graduation application and they are graduated, they cannot persist into the summer. Don, students can pend high school graduation to complete an AA only, or they continue to earn extra college credits beyond their AA. Again, same circumstance as graduating. Yes, they can take additional credits. Again, if you equate the achievement of an associate degree to graduation, we are essentially saying that, yep, you can complete your associate degree, get your, you can be eligible for that um, high school diploma and still keep going. Again, this is the same school year. You started without it, you earned it, you keep going, you get to the end. So yes, they can accumulate additional credits.
Thank you, Tim. I
Yeah.
think you're officially off the hook now. And Stephanie, Brandon let me know that he's going to go ahead and take control of slides. So you're
Perfect.
also off the hook for a moment.
Wonderful. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Tim. That was a lot. We all really appreciate you for all of those questions and answers, and your presentation, and just for taking the time today. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, hopefully you're still seeing a Q&A on the screen.
Yep.
Okay. Spencer?
All righty, our turn. So recently sent out a survey, and we kind of just want to spend some time today going over common responses and our thoughts on these kind of aggregated common responses, as well as, well, what we might be doing in the future with even more surveys, right? So we kind of clumped them into overarching, sections here to go over one by one. The first, we kind of clumped everything into a simplify and standardize processes. In this one, if you click two, Brandon, the first two are about that RSEVF form. It's forms in it, I guess, ATM machine, right? And how that data is, one, collected, and two, input into CTC Link or PeopleSoft. Again, Brandon and I are here at the student financials side of the house and the state board side, so not super familiar with this verification form, but we have talked with Stephanie and her team about in the future, not near future, but in the future, hopefully this is on our docket, streamlining things, getting data into a way where we can automate, maybe pulling this data from the form into PeopleSoft and presenting that data to you all in a nice, easy to read manner. Fortunately, that's not now, but in the future, as things kind of move on, this is on our radar, and it was good to see that it's also on your guys' radar. It came up multiple times among people from different institutions. This is something on our radar as well for the future. Beyond that, we looked at the page, and there was a bunch of suggestions for the page. There's a whole slide on this next, so I don't want to go into too much detail here. But there was some requests to remove unused fields. The common field we saw people mentioning was that counselor dropdown. We're aware that is currently broken. We do have notes on that one. So we have notes on that. There was a bunch of asks for additional fields or additional data to be put on that custom running start page within PeopleSoft. Anticipated graduation date for students, homeschool status via checkbox, just to let colleges know that it's a homeschool student. Is the student over 18? And then, are they in multiple colleges? And if so, can we get a list of the colleges that they're in? Again, we'll dive into that a little bit more, but that was really good information for us, because it's a custom page, we do have a little more flexibility to add and remove fields as you guys find them useful or not useful. So good responses there. Again, next slide, we'll dive into that a little bit more. Another big ask was for more training, some more guides, or QRGs we call them here, and collaborative workshops from both high school and college staff. We here at the State Board SF team focus primarily with the people in the college system. But I know Stephanie, you and your team we talked about with high school counselors, maybe helping get some more material for them as well. State Board SF team is getting a new trainer, so it'll be a great time to review everything with them. And as we send out more surveys, continue to update the documentation we already have out there and fill in any gaps that we have missing. And we love coming into these kind of meetings with y'all as the SF team. So hopefully we continue to get to do this as the years keep going. Share file platforms between colleges and districts. This one has an asterisk next to it because that's not something I can really do, or Brandon, this isn't really something we can do. Stephanie, I didn't know if you wanted to talk on this one at all. I just know this came up quite a few times. Not something we can really speak to here as the SF team, but
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm happy to jump in here. And I just wanted to say thank you, Spencer and Brandon, for being here and just being always willing to collaborate and work with our Running Start community. So it's really great. And we really appreciate it. And I agree. Let's continue to see what we can do improvement wise and make things easier for everyone. So yeah, so the file platform, I believe that we were the feedback we were getting is something like Canusha or dual enroll, right? And we've talked about that many times in many different spaces. The main issue there is the funding to have something like that system wide. And as Tim had alluded to earlier, the budget is very tricky this year. So it's something, the asterisk there is because it's certainly not something that Brandon and Spencer's team can create, but it's something that has been very much on our radar for a very long time, and we hope we would love to do that, I guess is really what I would just like to say. But it really comes down to funding.
then another one with a big old asterisk next to it, because is the regular evaluations of equivalency guides. But again, that's the kind of, I believe, kind of goes hand in hand with more updated documentation, training, and getting more familiar with that kind of those items. All right, cool. Next one, data access. This one is a big one. We'll kind of cover it as well on the next slide, being as our Running Start page kind of holds some critical information. There was a lot of asks for more information, Running Start student history, current past enrollments, any balances owed for the current term broken out into tuition or the mandatory fees, class fees, past terms to be able to be shown in the same page, program pathways, placement status, all of this information. Again, this is just letting you all know what has been shared by your peers and asked for in the survey. This isn't necessarily anything that we're going to throw in right away. We just wanted to share what the feedback that we got with our survey. So there's some good in here. There's some that's a little beyond our scope, but we wanted to share it anyway, just so you're aware of what people are asking for. Finally, we want to keep the conversation going. Kind of alluded to it a little earlier, but we do want to continue sending out these surveys. It was really nice for us to meet with Stephanie and team to actually go over and see what you guys want, right? With us here at the Student Financials team, that Running Start page holds enrollment, it holds a bunch of student data, and then it also has big impacts on student financials. That's why we help manage the page. But other than that, we don't necessarily get to see what your guys' concerns are or what you want added to it and all this kind of those kind of information and stuff. So it's really nice with the surveys to pick your brains and see what you're struggling with, what we can improve upon, and what again might need to go away. 9-10 rule being one of them. Next one, build out and maintain or update the FAQ and help sections. Again, we're going to continue to review what we have out there, get feedback from y'all, and make changes as needed and make sure that's the most up to date as possible. As we, we're always kind of changing things in the system and CTC Link and PeopleSoft, trying to make it better and better. We'll make sure that everything is up to date with that, as well as any, regulation change or policy change as well.
And just to add on to that FAQ and making sure that our information is as updated as possible, we're really also going to try to consolidate where that information and where those resources live, whether it's just going to be on the reference center and the QRG, or whether it will be hosted by the state board website. We are looking to make that way more efficient so that you don't have to look around for it or know which page to go to or have to ask somebody on a regular basis. Just make it as simple as possible. And this last one was also maybe one for Stephanie Kirsten, as with regards to supporting student ownership of their responsibilities and deadlines. And maybe the SFRA here in a moment could be a portion of that, but we'll talk more about that here in just a moment.
It stayed unmuted, so you had to do that one. Thanks, Brandon. All right, so this slide here, there's a lot of stuff on it, but just kind of want to go through because this will be, I believe, kind of the theme of our next survey to y'all. And it's the custom running start page. I say custom running start page for those of you that aren't super familiar with the PeopleSoft, behind the scenes workings. This is a page that the state board actually created with their app services department. It's not delivered by Oracle and PeopleSoft. That means we have a little more flexibility to actually manipulate, add fields, remove fields, and change things throughout as you see fit, right? The big update that we're going to be addressing this, I think this summer is when we're going to be looking into it, is that 9-10 rule, removing it, right? We talked to our app services team about the 9-10 rule to start, and it is a big lift. I think it's about a week's worth of dedicated time with the developer and our team here, at least one of us at the team, to collaborate and make sure that we're getting that 9-10 rule removed from everything. Again, because it's a little page, it's one rule on the page that manipulates billing units, that also manipulates the dollar amounts on the accounts. There's a big, chain of effect, and we want to make sure that if we're removing something, we get every piece of it out and we don't have any lingering configuration that makes weird mistakes and gives your state board SF folks headaches. So it's a big lift, but it is doable, right? It being a big lift means that we have to be very aware and very intentional with what we're updating. So we need to kind of discuss about what kind of items are doable and what kind of items might be better suited for, say, a query, a report, or just going to a page within PeopleSoft where that data already lives. Now, I know everyone might not have access to the customer account or the enrollment pages, but some of that we'll kind of cover. Some of those pages might just be the better place for it to live rather than throwing everything on the running start page. As we were kind of talking about before, there were great ideas. We kind of went over them. The high school, the homeschool, multiple enrollments at different colleges, those kind of items. Great ideas. But not everything can be put on the running start page is basically where we're going to get down to. So my big rule of thumb here is if the data does not live within PeopleSoft, if it's not entered by someone and stored on a table, or it's not mass like imported from, say, like an application to a college, we don't have access to it. We can't display it on our custom PeopleSoft page. That's pulling from tables within PeopleSoft. So if the data does not live in PeopleSoft or CTC Link, we're not able to display it and put it on the running start page. So that's just a good thing to keep in the back of your head. We might be collecting some data on that verification form, the running start verification form, that maybe, again, not super familiar with it, but say it's collected on the form but not input into PeopleSoft. That's something we're not able to display, unfortunately, on our custom page. It's only items that live within the system that we're using. Some of the ideas we really did like and that will probably make the cut, big emphasis on probably. We still haven't played through it yet, but we did like these when we were reviewing the survey. Obviously, the 9-10 rule, we're waiting to hear on that, but that is the big one that kicked this off. The multiple colleges. So if a college is registered in multiple institutions, that's something that in the survey people were asking to be able to see on the Running Start page. Pretty easy. Enrollment does live in PeopleSoft, so that's a pretty easy one to display. We can even show you which colleges, if they're in 2, 3, that they are actually enrolled in. Counselor info, that one was asked to be removed because it doesn't work. I'd rather make it work. I know we've in the past had an ask for a high school counselor's information tab, and then also like a college counselor, right? So we might be able to do both of those there. Again, we're just exploring it at the time, but the counselor info was something that came up that we liked as an idea to not add because it's already there, but maybe enhance and actually make it usable. And again, that homeschool checkbox, very easy to add a checkbox in that tells, you check it, indicates to people viewing the page and our system, this is a homeschooled student as of this term. So we really liked these. So keep these kind of examples in mind. Some very nice, easy to display, easy to potentially input as well. Data that can live on this screen that will be useful for you, that you don't have to have a query to do it or search outside of the system. This is something that we can actually easily put onto the custom Running Start page, items such as these. For things that can't be displayed on this page, I'll go into it here in just a second of the things that maybe are a little too big. For things that aren't going on this page, we really recommend creating a report or a query to aggregate and pull that data in and display it in a readable manner. One thing that we got asked quite a bit was to display financial data, like student financial data. That's not something that is going to be useful on this page, as we believe, just because it makes it messy. We already have the customer account page, which I believe is linked on that Running Start customer page. So you can click that, it'll open a new page in PeopleSoft for you. But pulling in all of that financial data, which gets really complex if you get down to the nitty gritty, just isn't something that's going to make this page usable, right? So for items such as that, we recommend reports or using the actual page itself. We have the Running Start billing report, right? That's a big report, but a good example of a global report that is usable to look at some financial data and information for your Running Start students. We also wanted to emphasize there are such thing as local queries. Again, not sure how familiar people are here with the local versus global query. Things such as the Running Start billing report, that's a global query that all colleges use. It has a lot of data. It's useful for all colleges to use. You can also get smaller local queries made by local query developers at your college. So if you have a unique scenario or a unique ask that's only for your college or for you and your processes that you do within your institution, that might be a good use to reach out to your local query developer and have them create a query specifically for you and your college's processes. If it's something bigger that, hey, this query is missing, I really would like to see this information, it's something that you think other institutions would like as well, that's a ticket to the state board, and we can create a global query where it can be used amongst all colleges. But just wanted to throw out that there is such thing as a local versus a global when it comes to queries. One thing we also saw, it was mentioned in the previous one, but just some more trainings, resource updates, like Brandon said, aggregating everything into a nice, easy to find every documentation, every resource, and more cross-pillar. That's one thing that we've been pushing for here at the state board as well. It's like we were saying, that Running Start page has quite a bit of just enrollment and student data, not actually a lot of student financial data on it. It impacts us greatly. I like to say we're downstream, so enrollment, you know, the number of units they're in, where they're from, are they resident, all of these kind of things that happen on the CS core side of the house, the enrollment, the application, the admissions, all of that feeds down to us. So we'd love to meet up with that team and introduce them to you guys as well. They're the ones creating these classes, creating the courses. It really is a collaborative effort behind the scenes. So more and more of that we'd love to bring in, maybe even over time, you know, other departments as well. But the core being enrollment heavy with the Running Start students seems like a good, easy one to start expanding our cross pillar presentations and documentation as well. And then our plan moving forward. Again, we want to confirm which of the ideas for page changes, this Running Start custom page, the addition, the subtraction of fields, that we want to move forward with, and which ones might need to be queries, and help develop those queries, because we did get some good ideas in the survey of some items that are pretty quick, easy queries to make that'll have a big impact for Running Start users. We need to review all that again, and we would also like to do a new survey. This survey would be more directed, and this last one was a little open-ended. We asked for what are, you know, pain spots, how do you feel about this and that. This new survey we want to send out is primarily on these updates. What would you like to see the Running Start page display? What trouble do you have specifically with the Running Start page? Are there things that do not work the way you would like? A field maybe that doesn't act the way you like? Are there things that are lacking, right? Again, the multiple college indicator, the homeschool indicator, the counselor box not actually working. Are there items like that that you'd like to see either improved, added, or removed for this Running Start page that would make your day-to-day job easier? And again, this would be not only things that you have issues with, but if you think of anything that you've heard other colleges struggle with, we'd love to hear that. That's things that we want to hear. This page is used by everybody. So again, we want to hear from as many people as possible on issues that they're having, and we'll kind of aggregate that data and see what kind of comes to the front of the line and is actually executable by, you know, us and our app services team. But that is going to be our next survey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Spencer, for going through that. You know, this next survey that will be sent out, will continue to be involved with this Running Start series and review those, and you know, collaboratively make the plan to make those updates for this page and share with you as clearly and as possible how long it's going to take. You know, what we're talking about, the testing that's going to be associated afterwards, because this will be an enhancement request that Stephanie and I, and we may need a college, you know, contributor, a supporter with the enhancement request. We'll have to see. But it will be a big process. But that's why, because this 910 is kind of opening the door for that, we just figured, hey, let's try to get some more improvements in there while it's open. So we'll definitely hear more about this possibly at each of the series as we continue, and expect that survey soon, not immediately after today, but because we still need to whittle down some of those survey results and get those into a point where we want to display those for everyone, and get your priority level of what you would like to see most versus least. And then we'll take that to our internal application services team here and learn from them what is indeed feasible, and then bring that back on to this group of folks. So, if you haven't heard, there's a pretty big implementation going on right now. It's called the Student Financial Responsibility Agreement, and their colleges have the ability to test and use this right now in the PCD environment. But what this is, just to kind of go back through, I know we've talked about this a little bit here with the Running Start community, but there has been a change as of the middle of March into March, and kind of bringing you back into the fold of needing essentially all students that work with our colleges need to submit an agreement or an acknowledgement that says, yes, there may be charges on my account. I do indeed need to pay, and there's going to be some consequences if I don't pay. And so that is mandated by Washington and federal laws. As I mentioned, the testing that's happening in the PCD environment is kind of turned on and active for the summer term. And then for adoption and the ability for colleges to select when they want this to be active for students to start submitting is going to be between this current summer term and the next spring term. And so just have those internal conversations with your CTC link leaders on campus. Your student financials area should definitely be familiar with this too if you haven't, and we'll go over the primary resources that we have established out there as well here in just a moment. And so originally last year when this kind of kicked off, we were thinking that the Running Start community would not have to submit an SFRA. However, there were some discussions and some conversations that really kind of started to lean away from populations being excluded at all, because we really want this we want to attain this from virtually all students that interact with our colleges here, to make sure that any fees whatsoever may be collected in the long run. And so towards the end of March, there was a little bit of that adjustment that says, okay, if a student is under 18 years old, we are not going to be requiring them to submit this. However, the day they turn 18, they are able to submit this. And so via the self-service process and CTC link, they will be able to go in and agree, review the terms, and make that agreement. And that'll be prior to their enrollment. There will be a hold that asks for this that will get in the way of registration after they turn 18. So if they're 17 and they register, it won't interrupt their enrollment. However, if they turn 18, let's say 3/4 of the way through the fall term, the hold will be applied, and the next time they go into CTC Link, they will see the need to submit this agreement and acknowledgement. As I mentioned, there's going to be two avenues. One primary avenue, fortunately for our Running Start students, because they are self-enrolling, utilizing the self-service module in CTC Link. They will very clearly see a to-do tile and not be able to enroll and complete enrollment if they have not submitted this for the year. And so the year for the SFRA and for consideration is considered from the summer through the spring. And so if they sign it in the summer, they won't have to sign it again until the following summer. And if they end up becoming a regular student in the fall term after being a Running Start student in the summer term, for example, they will still not have to sign it because they've already signed one. It won't interrupt their enrollment or anything like that. We are also, we've incorporated some communications that will be looking for when the SFRA is requested for the student to submit. And these communications will tell the student what it is, how it is, and these communications are local and managed by your institutions. And so there's the ability to have you have complete control over what will be on these communications, how often they're sent out. Where we will come in is during the deployment and activation of this into the production environment. We will sit down with you, make sure that you help you make any changes to these letters. You can utilize some of our material that we've established already, but then again, you may have some refined language and even screenshots and things like that that you would prefer to use, and of course, branding it as well. Recently, as of the beginning of April, all of the college presidents agreed to the main attributes that are contained within the Student Financial Responsibility Agreement. And so those attributes are listed out on our website, and I have the QRG is here, and let me just kind of go ahead and make sure that this is in the chat.
Already got it,
Okay.
Brandon.
Oh, of course you do. And so please check this out. And if you scroll on down, you'll see some of the main, pieces to this agreement, the laws governing it, and then the key attributes, which is what specifically the colleges and the presidents were reviewing to unanimously approve this and move forward with this project. And then below, you'll see the resources. And so within the resources, just a lot of information for you to learn more and more about what this is, how it was developed, how distinctly how it will function via what's called an activity guide in CTC link that is commonly used for PeopleSoft schools across the country, across the world. Well, across the country for sure, it's a regular federal thing. And so that's exactly why we're using it. We're following suit with the established protocols and the norms within our industry. And so please feel free to take a look here. And as I mentioned, the communications information is also here, so that you can begin maybe having some of those conversations or impact, if you want to call out Running Start students or whatever it is you wish to communicate. And so that was a note I just wanted to mention recently. And yeah, as I've stated a few times, originally we had thought that we were going to be excluding Running Start students. However, that was changed mostly due to the Constitution of Washington State and mentioning that we can't simply extend credit to our students, and therefore the the agreement was made between the president and the leadership here at the state board to kind of simplify the fact that all students really would need to submit this information. We have a link to the guide here on the slide deck, as Kristen linked as well. And I'm happy to kind of show you what a student will experience here as to go through and agree to this verbiage. So I will do that, and then we will open up to questions. And as I venture through the student's example, it is a live student. However, fortunately, there's no combination of biodemo data displayed, and so there's no way to really make it back to the student. You will only recognize, you'll only be able to see the student ID number. And so, but if necessary, we can also blur this in the video recording going forward. Okay, so the student will log in, end up going to their home page. And this is the test environment. So it doesn't have the oomph behind it as some of our production environment does. And you'll see here under this tasks, we got 1 to do and 2 holds. So if the student selects this tile, they will see the to-do list, and we'll see a financial agreement for the summer. So they will select this. And here is the verbiage. The verbiage is also on our QRG. Right now, this is, like I said, in the test environment, so it will be tweaked just a little bit as far as getting, making sure that there's your official return check amount and making sure your county names are in there, and that's all going to be submitted when you go into the production environment. After the student carefully reads this, I'm sure, they will go through and select the accept button. And as soon as this accept button concludes processing, the hold is released and enrollment is possible. And you'll notice that the tasks does end up getting updated. And if they do this online through the self-service, they will be able to go back in to their little tasks area and see what a completed guide or a completed SFRA to review again if they so wish. Um, Here we go. Now, as far as I mentioned some communications earlier, and the communications, not only we have established and set up for all colleges to tell them how to do this, but also what happens afterwards. And so the colleges have the option, they don't have to, but you can select to basically have an email go out after they sign this that will say, hey, you just signed this. This is how you signed it, when you signed it, and the verbiage that's in that that you signed and agreed to. And so the students will be able to see that in their email because of the communication. They'll be able to see it here on their tile under the completed agreements, and they will also be able to see it in the message center area. And so those are all been tested and are ready to implement for when you select to go live with this. And that's what I have to say right now with you all about the SFRA. What kind of questions are out there for Spencer and I?
Brandon, that's not all you have to say about the SFRA because there's questions for you.
Oh,
Um, so Keely asked, will this automatically be added to CTC link across all community and technical colleges?
not automatically across all colleges, no. Colleges have the ability to tell us when, what term, and what date to turn this on. We are asking and that everybody be on this by the spring term. And so we have some colleges that are going to be turning it on next week. And I'm sure, and we have some that have already requested the winter term. And so it's just depending on local decision.
So I have a follow-up question to that then. I'm from Lake Washington Tech, by the way. So, is it my responsibility to notify the college of this? Or I'm sorry, I know this is like you guys have told us about this before, but I just wasn't entirely sure. Or have colleges already been notified of this before? Or yeah.
Yes, colleges have definitely been, we've had a lot of communications go out about this to all sorts of aspects of the leadership, presidents to the SF area, to your registration. I mean, literally, I feel really confident in how we've spread the word about this this enhancement request that it kind of started last year. And so there's been a lot that has gone into this so far, and we'll continue to support it.
Okay, thank you.
Second question, can you share again why there is a distinction between Running Start students based on age for this form completion?
Um, so the distinction came via a conversation with our Attorney General, and that's where we gave them all these different populations. We had some conversations, and the recommendation was that under 18 students not be required to sign this, along with the Department of Corrections students.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? Is there any difference between what happens to a student who is above or below the age of 18? Or just the ones who are older get to know about it?
That wonderful question, because essentially, as of right now, not a lot different will happen to the students with regards to the actions that can happen to a past due balance. And so whether they're 17 or 18, the college is still capable and should be saying, hey, you got a past due balance, here's some letters, here's some holds, that, regardless of age, that should be happening. But where it will make a difference between their age is if they're placed with an actual collection agency, which the SFRA allows colleges then to do. And so if someone is not 18, they will be recognized in our system and essentially shouldn't be placed with an agency.
Great, thanks for clarifying.
Great questions, everybody. I know Spencer answered one in the chat, so I'll not cover that one, but does anyone else have any questions?
I'll just jump in here real quick too. And I think this comes down to, from like the Running Start programmatic standpoint, it's just going to impact like communication to students, right? So start thinking about how you're going to put that in maybe orientation materials, that there's going to be this communication, this agreement that students are going to have to agree to if they're 18 or older, or, during the course, as Brandon explained, during the course of their experience in Running Start or at a college, once they turn 18, they are going to see this. And so just that the communication, I think, is really important, to just acknowledge that that will be probably more of the responsibility here of just making sure students are aware, parents are aware that this change will be coming soon for students.
Any other questions before we move on to the next part of the presentation? Brandon really likes the tough ones, so feel free, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say thank you so much to Brandon and Spencer. I just really appreciate, I know I said it earlier, but the collaboration and just your willingness to always just come on and be like, you know what, sure, let's figure this out. Let's see what we can do. Let's put out a survey. Let's make sure we're communicating really well to folks. And I just feel like you all never say no. You always say, let's see what we can do. And so I just really, I think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone. Thank you, Brandon and Spencer. Just really appreciate you all so much. And we look forward to the survey coming out and seeing what we can do for folks. So thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for including us.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to share again here. We're going to start moving into breakout sessions. I think what we're going to do is 15 minutes instead of 20, just adjust a little bit because we had some really great conversation and questions. So we wanted to give everybody a chance to talk summer best practices. I know we had a lot of questions and conversations about summer Running Start earlier, but and this is really open-ended. We'll put the prompts here in the breakout sessions. We'll break you out into small groups, but these are just kind of some prompts we were thinking about as we were putting this together. What might be some best practices that you want to share or get some information from others on around communication, communicating to college staff, faculty about summer Running Start students, school districts, what's that looking like? Have you touched base about that? Community partners and to students and parents, what's staffing look like? I think we've talked about that a little bit, but something you might want to bring up in your breakout session. And then student support and engagement. What's that looking like for rising juniors, the students that are 10th grade, going into 11th, new to Running Start, graduating students? What's that look like in terms of support and engagement? And your continuing students, kind of the middle of the road students. And then if you want to talk about processes, how are you handling RSEVFs and the reporting and anything that might come up or that you might have questions for others about. So I know we're running a little low on time here, so I am going to just go ahead and say, let's break everyone out into breakout sessions at this point, so you all have an opportunity to engage with one another. And then we'll come back for about 10-ish minutes, maybe a little bit less, to debrief and wrap things up.
We're going to start with 4 breakout rooms, and then we'll see how that goes if we need to smush more folks together. So I'm going to hit the button, so you'll be joining very soon.
Thank you, Kristen.
Should have the notice now to join. Perfect, folks are moving over.
All right. Welcome, everyone. That was really fun, just being a fly on the wall in the breakout session. So thanks for letting me do that. And hopefully everyone had some great conversations. I know we are kind of running low on time. Would anyone like to share out something that they heard? Maybe an aha, or maybe something that we need to figure out as a system for summer. Would love to hear any kind of feedback.
Hi, this is Teresa from Olympic College. I think the one thing that was shared that I appreciated, Victoria shared that at Green River, they put separate holds for summer and for fall, so that when if students don't give them the EBF for summer, they can enroll, but they would see charges on their account, and that may prompt them to turn that in pretty quickly.
Love it. Thank you, Teresa, for sharing. All right, others? Little nuggets.
I can go again.
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
Well, we had a new somebody very new to Running Start in our group, which was really great to have new people come in and get to hear from their perspective. And he said his supervisor was also brand new. So Stephanie shared that they are available for one-on-ones. And also the recordings of these meetings are really helpful. Whenever I have a new employee come on, I have them watch the videos, because I'm like, there's so much information in there that is that you really can't find if you're looking for, like you get a wide variety of things that you can learn about. So.
Yeah, thank you for that, Teresa. I really appreciate it. And yes, I can't reiterate that enough. Always available to have a Zoom check-in. Just please let me know how that's what I'm here for, to help support you all and our system and our students. So please let me know. And Tim, thank you for dropping that in. And related to what Teresa was just saying, Katie put something in the chat here. If we have a repository for Running Start procedures and processes and helping new staff. So thank you, Tim, for dropping that resource in there. And that is also what Brandon and Spencer were alluding to as well. We're trying to kind of really clean some things up in terms of like at least the CTC link portion of having stuff all together. So hopefully we'll have some updates on that soon too. And we're thinking about new staff as staff are coming on and positions shift around. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on then here. If there's no other, is there anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, so last but certainly not least, share your brilliance. So I love that Kristen created this slide here. So don't be modest. We all know you're doing amazing things every day, and we want to know more. So this is kind of building off these breakout sessions, and we don't know what we don't know, right? And your community of Running Start colleagues they might not know what you all are doing. And so this is a way to try to figure out how we can share system-wide what is working really well for you at your college and with your students. So we're calling this the Innovative Practice Survey. And we're going to have a real quick turnaround on this. We're asking for it to be due end of the day, April 30th, so next week, so 1 week. It's a quick one, but what's something you're proud of? What's something that you think works really well with your Running Start students in your office, with your team? And additionally, would you be interested in maybe presenting that idea or what you all are doing at a Running Start series? So just thinking of other ways to really broaden the way we communicate with one another. And so this is just something we're trying out, and we would love to hear what y'all are doing. So please, please, please take the time to fill that out. It would just be really nice to know. I think we have a good gauge, but I'm sure there's stuff we don't know that are going on. So I would love to hear more from you all. So yeah, please fill the survey out if you have a chance to do so. The survey link isn't working. Oh no. Okay, we will
That's
fix
great.
that. Thank you. We will fix that and we will get this out. We'll send this out on the listserv as well. So thank you for letting us know. And thank you, Kristen, for putting the presentation slides in there as well. So we'll get that fixed. And as we wrap up, just wanted to plug a reminder here. What's next? May 21st, 9 to 11. So it'll be the morning session. The last two of this academic year are going to be morning sessions. And then the next one will be on June 18th, 9 to 11. We do plan on continuing them into next year as well. Next academic year, we don't have those dates yet, but the plan will be to have those ready to go before we wrap up the series for this academic year. So you all know and can plan that into your calendars. So if anyone wants to also just send me a message with if you like the time and dates. I know it's kind of, we tried to go back and forth between afternoon and morning to try to give a little bit of variety there. So we'll try to do that similar thing and avoid like council meetings and things like that. But we will continue to record these as well. So if you can't make it, you can at least watch it back. Great. Well, that is it. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out this morning with us. I know it was a lot of information. We hope you found it valuable. We certainly really enjoyed our time this morning, and we just really appreciate everybody. And this works because you all attend and give us feedback, and we really appreciate the time that you take today and always when you join us. So really appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
everyone.